to be with you today. I'm going to share some slides in just a moment, but it's so good to see everybody's faces around the gallery. And I'm glad we could get together today to talk about long-term services and supports, which is actually kind of a government term for all the different resources that are out in the community. Wayne and I work together, and I think the term we used a lot of the time was home-based, home and community-based services. And so you'll see that sometimes in literature as well, thinking about the different services out there. So I wanted to kind of have a chance today to talk about some of my experiences in my new role. I'm program manager over at USC Verdugo Hills Hospital's new service, a mouthful here, but the Community Resource Center for Aging, or what I like to call the Resource Center. So very similar to what Huntington Hospital has at Senior Care Network, we have just the one component called the Resource Center that is designed to take calls from the public. Anybody can call from anywhere, really, and just have someone to talk to and talk about their situation and perhaps the need to find some community-based resources. So I did that during the pandemic. I felt kind of privileged, maybe is it the word? I don't know, just very poignant during the pandemic to be able to connect with people. And we did that by phone. And then I did do a few home visits even during the pandemic, being very careful with the masks and distancing and all. And now we're sort of moving on to the 2.0 of the Community Resource Center by having a couple of staff that are going to be covering the full week. So I was just part-time. So now we have two MSWs that joined me just this month. Denise Trabolsky, who's worked with Jewish Family Services doing private care management most recently, and she's been around. She's worked at the county as well, and so some of you may have crossed paths with her. And then we also have May Ross, an MSW who has actually been working at the USC Roybal Institute, which is all about older adult services, especially to diverse populations. So it's really great to have two people join the team, and then I'm pulling back out just to kind of manage things and to fill in where needed. So kind of working in this new way. So let me go ahead without further ado and share some slides that will help me organize my thoughts a little bit and just cover some content. I'm hoping today you'll get something out of this, and also I know there's so much information that you all have that we can have a little discussion. So I'm going to try to keep this short enough so that we have some time to talk. This is kind of a funny name, but I was I was talking with Susan Carr and Wayne April, and I said, you know, the way things have been going lately, it's like a hopscotch, this thing about, I think, you know, we often would talk about navigating services and supports because it's almost like a sailboat. You could imagine, you know, navigating your way. It sounds really nice as a metaphor, but the people I've been talking to over and over lately have like, boom, we got to switch gears, you know, whoop, that worked for a while. We got to change gears and go over here. So it's really been, in my mind, I wanted to make a point today about how dynamic it is when we think about aging in place, and how we really need to be ready for change because nothing stays the same. So kind of been learning that through the wonderful people that have been calling in. So I'm going to kind of hit a few different topics that I'm going to work this theme in with. And so I just wanted to kind of give the overview here. But I want you to leave with today thinking about, you know, about our population growth. So that's not anything new. I just want to make the point about our population being diverse, and, you know, and how one answer for one of us in the gallery is not the same answer for another one of us. We're going to need different things because we have different experiences and preferences, etc. The other kind of topic I want to cover is just, you know, looking at this a little broader than just our individual nuclear family, but realizing that there's really kind of an ecological system at work here, and we need a community that sustains us, and we need a village, right? And we have a village, thank God. But I think about the community and really being able to support each other in place. And so there are initiatives out there like age-friendly, dementia-friendly, purposeful aging Los Angeles. There's kind of things at the community level going on. I think probably where the rubber hits the road is when we're talking about caregiving. When we need a little assistance, we need someone to come in and shore up some areas for us so we can really keep aging in place where we want to be. And I think people don't utilize long-term services and supports as much as they might need them. So we'll talk a little bit about what do we even mean by that term, what falls under that net of that definition. And then I just want to, I'm kind of getting touched lately. This morning I got some word about one home care agency that actually has to stop taking clients. Being a business, that's not good, but they don't have the workforce. And I think all of us need to be thinking about how to build our workforce of care providers, because we really are finally, this has been talked about most of my career, but we're coming up short. And so these are some of the big areas that I want to integrate into our discussion. So this idea of an aging population, we have a lot of diversity. And so I like this kind of thinking about, we get called seniors like at 50, right? People will say you're a senior now, come join AARP. But you and I know that at 50, we're kind of still bouncing around and doing the same old thing. It comes a little later, perhaps, when we think about a little bit later when we might need different things. So we've got, kind of moving into our older years. We call 65 to 74 the young old, and then older. It says old, but I don't even like saying just old, right? But mature is 75 to 90. And then the oldest old being 90 plus. And so kind of, you see that, in that mature 75 to 90 age group is probably where our mind goes to when we think of aging and needing services and supports. But keeping in mind that this is a pretty diverse, span of time, just like childhood and adulthood, it's means a lot of different things. So this is a label that it can mean a lot of different things. And I guess too, just making sure that we underscore the importance of cultural diversity. People need services in their language if they're monolingual in another language. And certainly individuals that have been, lifelong dealing with the disability and managing and coping with it, they kind of approach this a little differently. And they basically are going to maximize, their independence as much as possible. But they're pretty used to bringing in supports and realizing, kind of like an executive does, right? You know who your persons are. They're going to help you make sure that you can do a good job with living. So here's the age span of 60 to 100. And of course, I don't know, do we have any baby boomers in the group here? I think most of us, huh? I'm a baby boomer. So a lot of us are baby boomers, or you might be part of the great generation before that. And then, of course, thinking about other diversities such as sexual identity. Let's see, I'm trying to move my little thing out of the way here so I can see. Yeah, just sexual orientation I have here. So just thinking in terms of, the resources that people have and sort of the legal umbrella, how things impact them in society. Thinking about functional ability across the span of aging. And we're learning more about technology as we Zoom together today. And then again, this emphasis on preferences. So a lot of diversity going on in this later half of life. So when we think about optimal aging, we think about all these various different spokes here that can mean that we have to shore up our physical health. Maybe there's actual particular routines, health behaviors that we want to work on. Perhaps mental health, mood disorders, other conditions that impact our mental health, and life satisfaction overall, which is even greater, having a sense of purpose and generativity in our life. cognition, being able to really be able to have the wheels turn and be able to make decisions that we need to make, given all the facts, right? So having cognition to do that. And then probably one we've learned the most about lately is we need a lot of social contact, right? To have optimal aging. We need to find ways to connect with people in the way that we want to the degree we want to, because it is personal. But I think if you're in the village, you probably have seen the value and the importance of having social connections. So these are kind of some of the things that make up optimal aging. Do you think there's a missing spoke anywhere? Does anybody think that maybe there's something else here? I want to pause just in case you want to say anything.
Maybe financial health.
Exactly. So I presented this same slide to some students, and they said the same thing. It's socioeconomic status is a huge part of optimal aging, isn't it? It really opens the doors to different types of things that we can bring on board, especially since today we're talking about long-term services and supports. So we know, if, for example, if housing is an issue or we need more assistance, like making that move into Villa Gardens, right? Not everyone has the ability to pick the Villa Gardens option. They might be at a different place because they're actually relying on Medi-Cal to pay the bill. So it's going to be a little bit different picture. Yeah, Claire.
I'm thinking of, it sort of crosses a bunch of those lines, but environmental health, which is related to physical health and socioeconomic health, but access to the natural environment, and the natural environment not being so polluted or in other ways compromised as to be in danger to people.
You're so right. I was really amazed lately that we have data now that shows our air. If our air is too polluted, it actually is a risk factor for dementia, right? So you're right. Our water, our air, all the basic environmental supports that we need. So yeah, I had a sense there was a couple of things missing. So good catch, you guys. Okay. So just a key point here is just to think about, again, some of the myths of aging. We want to crush these. We don't want to believe in these. For one of them is that all older adults will have or eventually develop dementia. We're learning so much more about how to decrease our risk for dementia. Not everyone has that propensity for this particular issue. So we have to kind of bust the myth that everybody is going to develop dementia. Most older adults live in nursing homes. Again, a huge myth, right? Because we know, I think it's up to maybe 7%. It used to be that I would hear like 5%. So it's up a little bit more, maybe almost pushing to 8%. 8% out of 100, so we're talking a very small percentage of people live in nursing homes. And usually that's for a short amount of time. And that might be late in life if they don't have supports to end their life at home, to have their end of life care at home. Another myth is that after retirement, older adults don't do anything. Well, ha, 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 they don't know about the village, right? But, people are out. I can hardly catch up with a lot of you. You're traveling and doing hikes and all kinds of great things. So we know that as older adults, we keep on trucking. I still work. There's a lot of us doing many different projects and staying really involved. And then, of course, the myth about everyone over 65 is depressed. And actually, there's a positivity effect of aging. We actually tend to see the positive side of a lot of things as we age. So depression is real and it needs to be treated. And sometimes in older adults, it gets missed or doesn't get the treatment it needs. So it does need to be something that's, addressed, but it certainly is a myth that everyone over 65 is depressed. And then this cute picture down here of twins, two 25-year-olds look more alike, or really are more alike than two 75-year-olds, meaning that, it's kind of the most heterogeneous time in the life stages, that we become more and more different as we age. While there's common issues and things that come up, we have our own experiences, our own desires, and those become more and more unique to us and person-centered as we gain, years, which is cool, right? So, I mean, this is, if you do, and we have some retired social workers in the group, and some active folks doing work with older adults. And so, this kind of bioecological lens, but I just want to invite all of us to think about this. We often think more about our own circle, our own world, our environment, and our family and friends. We might kind of branch out and think about the community that helps us. Maybe that's, our synagogue, our church, our maybe an agency that provides housekeeping, whatever it might be. So community partners that help us carry out our life the way we want. And then the greater society, which brings in, a lot of policies and brings in sort of the structure of our society. So this is a nice way to kind of think about things. And so this greater community, I wanted to just touch a bit on that, and then we'll come back in again. Just thinking about the big picture. We really need to depend on community, to age in place, because we really want our communities to be set up so we can access things and we can have connections and feel, comfortable in our communities, right? Be healthy and have a sense of connection. So that means, vitality in the community, or things to be kind of commonplace and spoken about and understood. And, this has been growing. I think about my career over, 30, 40, maybe longer years. It actually is interesting to watch TV or to watch a movie and to see these themes being brought into the media, right? It's getting more and more talked about. More people are understanding more about resources. The issue around housing couldn't be more critical. Older adults have some specific needs around housing, for it to be comfortable enough. Maybe the stairs and things like that need to be taken into consideration for some. So just thinking about affordability. The same with transportation, thinking about how we can get around conveniently and at a cost that's not too prohibitive. Having connections across generations is so important. And so community can offer us this as well. Thinking about, the uniqueness across different communities. So it's how we decide to make our policies, whether that's, local here. Someone was talking about Pasadena's public health policies before we got started. So from city to county to state to national levels. And I want to just make a shout out that we do have a state, initiative going on right now, the Master Plan on Aging. And actually it has, over a couple of hundred initiatives that are trying to be kind of implemented right now. So under the governor, we have a lot going on in California, which is great. Under Biden, there's a lot of things that are being talked about at the national level, like the Build Back Better. That's huge. Actually, it has a lot of elder policies in it, and so it's kind of stalemated right now. But there are some like elder mistreatment, kind of elder justice issues that are embedded in that particular legislation. So we're really hoping to get that passed. So there's lots going on, and that makes, for our environment, how age-friendly it is to us, helping us have our optimal opportunities. And then, of course, resources, which we'll get into next. And some of that is the technology, some of it's social network, and then preventive programs. It's interesting, the word preventative. I was trained that you say preventive, but anyway, we know what that means, right? Let's not have to suffer. Let's not have to have a particular issue. Let's do what we need to do up front so we don't have to go through that. So again, kind of thinking of the lens here, well, what's the goals, that we're talking about with long-term services and supports? Well, we want to kind of have proactive lifespan and wellness. We want to be educated regarding the aging process at all levels. We want older adults to be seen as an asset and acknowledged for their economic impact. Claire, you want to get a word in here? As I'm on a ramble, aren't I? Oh, I see your hand up. No, okay. So anyway, elder adults as an asset, and we have the greatest wealth, right? We carry the greatest wealth if you look at us as a population. So we really do have a lot of power, you know, to carry out things like policy changes. Optimal aging goals include aging, disability, and caregiving resources, which I've kind of made a bit of my life's work lately. And I'm going to move you over here. So with these, you know, kinds of resources, we're looking for things like making sure there's this sense of abundance, of awareness, of access, you know, that we can kind of go to a source and get what we need. And I think what that takes is finding a gatekeeper type agency. I use that term gatekeeper, but somebody who can sit with us for a moment and kind of think about our situation, our functional abilities, our needs and desires, and then think about what's available and kind of help make the match. What's going to be the best fit for that particular individual? And a big part of this also is caregiver support. And so that includes, you know, making sure that the people that are making all that happen right now, which is some of you in the gallery today, that you get support and you get enough you know, to help you sustain yourself so you can keep on going, because it's such a special thing to be a caregiver, but it also can be burdensome and it can be hard on you physically if the stress gets, you know, out of hand. And then just thinking again about we need options that consider diverse needs and preferences. I would say we're not there yet, and I'll have some of you weigh in on this, but I think that there are a number of long-term supports and services that we can tap into, you know, to really have more autonomy and to really have our own desires taken into consideration. I've been working with a lot of, I would say, Latino families, you know, and helping kind of know how, maybe even it's just the informal network needs to know how to do the care, how to get organized, how to be able to keep someone at their optimal level in the home when they have other needs. So coming together and working in concert is huge. Okay, so here's the slide I want to spend some time on. Let me see if I can. You see me move that around? I'm moving you around. Okay, now I can see everything. So this is kind of got that government look to it, doesn't it? This was put out, I think, by the Iowa Aging Network. But I liked it because it has a lot of different services and supports. So if I think of long-term care, a lot of times people's mind goes to, oh, you're talking about nursing homes. And no, we're not just talking about nursing homes. We're talking about how to manage when you need care ongoing. And so that care, it might just be help with paying your bills or something like that, right? So you see on this list, it starts with things like adult day center, day programs where people can go. This is helpful when, for example, there is a caregiver at home that needs a break, and there's different models of that. And probably I should organize these not in alphabetical order, but more by setting. I think a lot of us are used to thinking about the continuum of care. Some of these are light. So if we look around these lists here, information and referral, that's like the start, right? I want to learn about what's out there, what's available. And if you think something's a good fit for me, I'm going to take down the name and number. So information referral is huge, and we need that in communities so we can navigate and do our hopscotching around when things start to change. Things like legal assistance. You never know when something pops up that's unplanned, where you all of a sudden need to kind of find some legal support to make a decision or to address a problem that's come up. Counseling and emotional support. Again, you might be very independent, but finding that on the emotional side of things, the mental health side of things, that you could use sort of a chance to unload a little bit, unpack emotions, and help come up with a plan going forward. Now, some of the more kind of what would you say? Well, the instrumental kinds of activities of daily living that we do are things like keeping our house, kept, keeping the groceries done, and having a refrigerator with options for food, right? Some of these things like shopping, errands, chore services, homemaker services. What else is on here? All these are sort of things that will help us sort of keep going with those kinds of issues. And when I talk to people, sometimes they're not doing those things as much because they're not feeling up to it, or they really can't. Maybe their vision has changed and they can't drive right now, so they're feeling like they better not go, and it better be safe and lower risk if they don't go out to the store, which is smart. And so transportation is a huge thing as well. Sometimes people can do things on their own, they just need help getting there. And of course, getting to doctors and things like that. There's a couple things on here that might need a little bit of description. Well, just thinking about housing. So most of these we're talking about in your own home, doing these kinds of things. But then you see some things like assisted living facility. So Dick and I were just talking about Villa Gardens, where you have a continuity of care. You can move in and be independent in your apartment, maybe have some housekeeping and some meals that you can go down for. So that can be very light, all the way to, gee, I'm having trouble getting to the restroom on my own, and I need, somebody to come by a lot and often and help me get my day started, etc. So you can have a lot of different help through assisted living. Some people find they get to a place where they need some medical support, and assisted living does not provide that. They don't have the nursing folks usually around. Now, some do. They'll make a special, it's a highly unregulated area, assisted living facilities. So it's the Wild West, as they say. And some of them do have some medical people. But when you really need, for example, you've had a big surgery or something, usually you go to a nursing home level of care to get that kind of 24/7 support if you need anything in a medical way. So you see lots of things here. And is there any questions about any of them? And I'll move on. I think I see one, but yeah, if I see one as the personal emergency response device, might be kind of a one that you're not as familiar with. A couple of you may know the button, basically, that you can push if you need some support. So that's another tool. Yeah, Sue?
Well, I'm looking at this because I think everybody on this call is part of the village, but as like a handy kind of a guide for us in thinking, well, okay, the village, we're not an adult day center, we're not an assisted living, kind of, but we could do chore services, kind of the ways, because I think you're going to get into how people have to pay for these things, or family members or friends do them. So, if money is an issue, what can reasonably and safely be done by a family member or a friend or something like the village, and what can't be done. So I think it could be a useful guide for us as it probably already is, and I just don't know about it. But to me, it lays out pretty clearly things that are within our scope and what we would have to have resources to refer people to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think when you said that, I was thinking that I think of the village as being a nice stopgap, rather than giving up my car and deciding I'm not going to drive anymore. If I might use transportation through the village to get me through a time when I'm not able for a short time,
Right.
knowing that I'm going to be back on my feet again. Or maybe I have other support for transportation and I just need a little bit of help. So I think, yeah, for the lighter kinds of services and supports, the village is a wonderful way to extend our informal network, right? I think about informal versus formal services. And so informal, I might just ask my neighbor to take my trash can out for me because I'm not feeling up to it. But then, if I can't do that every week, I'm not going to ask my neighbor every week. So basically, I might have to then hire someone that comes out and helps me with a few things and does that. So I think part of it is the sense of chronicity, if that's maybe not a great word, but how ongoing is the issue going to be, and how reliable is my informal network? So so I think as a village, we try to be reliable because we all try to pitch in, and if you need meals for a few days, we can do that, and you don't have to go on the home delivered meal service. But then after, a week or two, we're running out of steam probably, and we need to basically have, what else exists out there to help fill in the gaps. So, so these are some of the services. And I think, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I think the village is, because in the end, mostly everybody's going to need help ongoing. I mean, so I think you hear this, that villages provide the infrastructure. So it seems to me that we're a step up from informal, where you can't really, you're asking a neighbor for a favor, and so we're a little step up from that, but we're not a service of this sort. I don't know, I'm just thinking about it. It's not part of this conversation, but think.
Yeah. Let's see, Claire added in, what is public case management? Is only for low-income people. So the Older Americans Act does cover, so those were good comments, by the way, Sue. I agree with you. And I think we're sort of looking at this right now through the Staying Connected program and all. So it's really timely that we're all just here together. But public care management or case management is through the Older Americans Act usually. And it's not supposed to be just low income. It's supposed to be brief, short-term care management. I find that the different entities that get that funding, as it dribbles down, it gets passed from federal to the pass through the state, and then it gets to different designated contracted vendors, basically. And so I think the way that it gets handled is different in different places. So yeah, and that used to be, it's kind of moved around too, that contract. An aside real quick is that the county area agency on aging, that's any area agency on aging is where you kind of get some information on what's being offered through Older Americans Act. So if I get a caller from Pennsylvania, I'm going to figure out where's the closest AAA and not the automobile club. And I'm going to try to figure out, what are they offering and what can they tell me about what exists and what's up and running during the pandemic, et cetera. So the area agency on aging is huge. What's complicated in our area is that we have two of them. We have a city of LA and we have a county area agency on aging. But the Board of Supervisors has recognized that that's complicated. And so they are merging them. And so there's been someone hired to merge the two. And that's Dr. Laura Trejo. And so that's all been very recent. She just got hired, I think last month, maybe January. So anyway, that's all kind of happening. And I think that will provide more and more an aging and disability resource connections for us, which is what our state would like to see across California, is that we call one place and then they can start to kind of dole out what's available in our neighborhoods. I still think there's a good case for a senior care network and a community resource center for aging, because we know right in our neck of the woods what's happening and can even give a more tailored answer to some of those questions. But I think that we're coming to a time, hopefully, where there'll be a better connection there. There's a project in Iowa I just wanted to kind of point out, and I think this was something that one of our members had mentioned, wouldn't it be great if we had like one workshop or maybe a series that actually talked about long-term services and supports, and the topics might include legal and healthcare documents to have ready and organized, how to think about falls and decrease your fall risk in your home environment and other places that you go, how you deal with driving, if you have any changes in your ability to drive, locating resources, and designing a care plan. So this idea of care plan is something that I know, like Wayne and I have dealt with this over the course of our work, but I think, personally, you think of what's my trajectory or my plan. And so just planning ahead, right? And so we all should have care plans kind of worked out for ourselves. And this type of project would link caregivers with the different, is it faith there? Let's see, no, different familiar community organizations. But I also wanted to say that, you know, there are community organizations such as faith-based organizations that are doing some of this work as well. So just helping people learn about these different issues and be able to be one step ahead, right? If things change for me, how do I want this to play out? Where would I like to get support from? And then getting familiar, you know, with the different, for example, facilities. Maybe if my memory were to get worse, I might want to be in a particular memory care center. Well, which ones, you know, do I like the feel and the culture of? So just kind of hard to think ahead of these things, but I think being familiar, you know, with different services in our neck of the woods makes sense, doesn't it? And so this was a project where they basically asked people to go through this class, and they found, you know, basically like almost 2/3 of the people were knowledgeable about a lot of the different types of long-term services and supports. So you might be sitting here today going, oh yeah, I know about these things. But they didn't necessarily know exactly what their plan was, which ones were available in their neighborhood or what they would prefer. So they really didn't have that more personalized understanding. So I think it's great kind of thinking about, you know, being prepared, dealing with these things so that you can basically meet your needs before they get to a risky place. Also so that caregivers don't get to an extra stressed kind of situation and not feeling so uncertain about what's available. And then personal care needs and supervision, they really drive nursing home use. So this idea that we've learned this over the years, we've been told, you know, if you could get a nice plan going of helping someone age in place, they may never need institutionalization, right? Because you can kind of do the legal documents that you indicate what your wishes are. You have certain providers that can provide the care. Not always does it play out like that. Sometimes you need something more acute for a bit. But basically being able to drive as much of your experience the way you want, whether that's in assisted living and really enjoying, you know, a little more relaxation around some of those activities of daily living that you don't have to have as chores, or perhaps you have a special home environment that it's like, I want to live it out right here. And I hear that a lot. So sometimes, you know, kind of learning about these services can be really helpful in that regard. So just to change course just a little bit, I just want to point out, you know, that we are going to need a workforce to help us here. And this was some data I found in Iowa, just saying that they really already have a shortage. And I would say I didn't find any California reports, and I think they're out there, but we're really behind the 8 ball. We have a lot of need, much more greater need than we have caregivers. And like I told you this morning, I was hearing about one particular agency I like. They said they really can't take more clients right now because they don't have the staff to be able to send out to them. But I like this, you know, last piece here. I think that aging is related to many of the growing careers. And so, you know, helping kind of the next generation think about, you know, how can they be kind of filling in some of the need, you know, whether it's educating others, providing healthcare and wellness, thinking about, you know, different human services. There's actually a community healthcare worker position that is just growing by leaps and bounds lately. I've heard about this mostly in the Bay Area, but it doesn't take as many years of college, you know, that they can basically be part of a community and be that on the ground person that really helps their community. Thinking about intergenerational programming, you know, getting creative with technology and design, marketing, and just really basically, you know, there are careers where they can think about aging in all these different ways and different professions. But we really need to grow a multidisciplinary, well-trained workforce that can promote, you know, our optimal aging across our lifespan. So I'm just winding down with what I have prepared, and then we can do a couple case studies or just, talk a little bit more about what maybe as a village we're thinking about these days. But I just wanted to share on the website that we have with the Community Resource Center. We're just right now updating a number of these resource pages, but each of these topics like brain health and grief and loss and preventive health, we've been going over those and kind of making sure all the links work, and these are always available to you online. You can always just click open and see if there's something that interests you, or a particular topic you want more information. And then you can always feel free. So that website is under that online resource listings there. You can see aging resources is kind of our what would you say? I'm thinking of trucking where they have a, anyway, it's our handle. That's it. Aging resources. So this is where I work at Verdugo Hills Hospital, and we call it Community Resource Center for Aging. My last slide. But really the mantra there is something I think really fits with the village so well. Again, being another, a free community service, the goal is to enhance life, for older adults. And I think a lot of that comes by tailoring, and filling in the needs where they exist. And so we do this kind of options counseling. What are my options? This is happening right now. My husband's having this surgery, or I'm not feeling like I can really do this during the pandemic, or I'm looking for this. So I did a lot of helping people find their vaccination sites and things like that too. But we're in the community a bit. We're working real closely with the YMCA now to have a one-time a month caregiver night off, where caregivers can come in with their care recipient and have a couple of hours where they each do different activities, so they get a little bit of break apart from each other. We did our first one this month, and it was pretty fun. The Alzheimer's Los Angeles group helped us do memories in the making. So we did some watercoloring and had a lot of fun. And then we had 3 or 4 caregivers that said, I really need an ongoing group because this is hard work and I'm not feeling so great about it. And then the last one I just want to tell you is that we are now part of the Glendale Central Library too, to go in once a month and be there to meet with patrons that have the same kinds of questions. So I'm looking for, always ideas. I know I have such a bright group here on this gallery today. So thinking about, how to do interesting things in the library. So hi, Sue, you're big.
Oh,
Is that my view?
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments they would like to make? Just raise your hand and unmute yourself.
Hi, Barbara.
Bruce.
Oh,
Hi.
yes, Bruce.
Adria, yeah, I just had a question. The email address that you had was Adria Navarro at med.us.edu, not USC.
USC. Was there a typo?
Yeah, it was USE.
Ooh.
That was
not good.
on your first slide, because I was writing that down. I'm going like, okay, you're a person to, and then when you said you were with USC.
Oh, let me put it in the chat. Yeah. So it's Adria.Navarro at USC. Oops, actually I have a med mail, so it's med.usc.edu. I must have gone too fast. And then I'm going to put my phone number with that too. We have an 818 up there at the hospital. I'm housed at the hospital. It's really been nice. They moved me around a little bit in the beginning, but we have we're in the foundation office now. So we're right on the 4th floor of the Verdugo Hills Hospital, which is the same floor that you enter when you come to that hospital. So feel free to come and visit me sometime. Thanks for the clarification, Bruce.
Barbara?
Yes, I had sent a text asking about how does one, if one feels or things are kind of getting out of control, how can you find out what is available to you? And I think you answered that question, is that you do have options counseling. Could you describe that a little bit more? The
options counseling, yeah. So a lot of what I'm not just me anymore, but what we do when Denise and May and I will take a phone call. And I think it's, when I think of you all as ambassadors, you're all doing this for each other and for others. What we kind of want to be thinking about is the biopsychosocial. We want to be thinking about what's the person's medical situation? How are they doing emotionally and socially? And, what services are already in place that's working? And then what is the presenting issue? What's the preferences and the needs that the person is coming forward with? So I invite anybody to call and to explore, like, gee, I'm looking ahead and I'm trying to think about, options for managing such a large house. I don't want to leave it and it's very big and I can't clean it myself anymore, or, whatever it might be, all the way to I'm going to be moving and downsizing, or gee, I haven't been feeling as strong. Maybe I had COVID and I'm a little bit weaker after my COVID. So it's really personal. And I know, Barbara, you know a bit about how this works. What am I missing? What would you add?
Well, I'm thinking if someone finds themselves in just starting to feel overwhelmed, physically or socially or whatever it is, and it's just a recognition that I need some services, but I don't know how to find them. I don't know how to find someone to do some meals for me. I don't know how to find someone to kind of manage my property. I can afford, but I don't know how to find someone. And would a care manager be someone you would look for, or is that something, or would you refer to a care manager? How would you help us sort that through?
I know that as villagers, we've learned a lot about geriatric care management, or Aging Life Care Association has a lot of folks registered to be care managers, and I really support that service. If one can afford privately hiring someone to be a care manager, I think that is ideal. Having someone that learns about you and your preferences and can actually spend time on the phone for you and be almost like a secretary sometimes, right? But making the coordination work so that you get things situated. So that's another one of the services that's out there and available to people. When Claire asked about the public case management, those are folks that do similar things, but much more brief, a little bit more at the superficial level, I would say. I don't know, Wayne, do you think I'm being fair? But I think, private care managers really wants your business, and they really want to be right alongside you and know your details. And I think what you find with public services is that they often have more referrals than they can really manage. And so they're trying to look at efficiencies sometimes. And so there's differences. But all to be said, back to what Barbara was asking, is I think sometimes I'll talk to someone and I can't quite make out what's happening, or I'm not quite sure. And it's really helpful. I know back in the day, Dorsey's on the call today, and I got to go out and meet Dorsey in person, and just kind of really spend more quality time to learn a little bit more about, her situation, and get to know, the person that I'm trying to provide ideas to. So that kind of a home visit is offered by the Resource Center as well. So we can't do a whole lot of that, to be honest, but right now we're not getting a lot of calls in that we're not feeling that like a public service. We're not feeling overwhelmed with the volume. So we can really tailor it. And if it's a sit down at a coffee shop, or we can get a little private corner, we can talk confidentially. It can work like that as well. So I've done that too.
Yeah. Sue?
Well, I was just thinking if a person was, worried about money or had limited finances, and would you be available, or would it be good to prioritize, help them think through, well, my cat attacked me. Just how you would you really don't want to fall in the bathtub. So maybe it's better to have someone come in the morning or something or other. And then maybe a neighbor could, do the trash, or that kind of problem solving with limited resources, rather than having a case, your private own, care manager, whatever. Is that something?
Yeah, definitely. And I have people that have called me and called me back. And actually that was part of why I named this the hopscotch, because things change, and I remember a woman working at home, taking care of her husband, and she needed just someone to be, able to kind of get him out and have some pleasurable activities. Then it became, gee, I need a day program because that's not enough anymore. And then it became, the medications are not going well. I think we need a new doctor. And so we needed a new doctor. And then it became, can't handle, him at home, and he needs to be in a facility. And so finding someone that knew about facilities. And then it became the care is, there's problems here. And who do we talk to when there's problems in a facility? So it's been like a whole, like you think, boy, it's all set,
Yeah.
and it just never stops, does it? But I think maximizing what's available is critical. So if someone if they'll spend down to the Medi-Cal level, there's things like PACE program. There's things like if someone is at a place where they're getting closer to the end of life, they might, be able to benefit from hospice or palliative care. And I think when you just don't know about some of those services, it's a little scary. But I think that when you realize, whoa, I can get access to a whole team of people that will make sure I'm going to have the best life I can, So,
But I think I just was on a call with Katie, and we met with, and Charlotte, who's running the village movement. And
yeah,
if everybody spent down to Medi-Cal couldn't handle it either. I mean, that's not a good society option to make everybody spend through their wealth in order to qualify for services. So we don't, yeah.
Well, I mean, what we look at right now is the 7 or 8% of the people that are in long-term care. Most of those people are on Medi-Cal. So it's a huge, huge burden, as far as a society. The cost is enormous.
Yeah.
So if we had a more age-friendly community and more people could make it in their homes where they'd want to stay anyway, right?
Right.
Or people could acknowledge when end of life is coming and get the kind of care they need, to be safe and have their needs met in their home. Yeah, I think we're getting there where we really are feeling pressure to make some changes about how we do our lives.
When I was working, I often went out to people's homes, and that was a question they had all the time. How do I conserve my resources so that I don't end up on the street? And they were looking at these huge expenses looming over them, and their modest savings and resources. So I spent a lot of my time trying to counsel how they should go about it. But, it's a real kind of a mess for seniors because there's no one place to go for definitive counseling on what to do and how to manage your resources. And everybody's situation is different. So it's really hard to give them a hard and fast rule to go by, because what works for one person doesn't work for another person. So
that's why I feel really lucky to have sort of this privilege of, being able to give people a lot of time to tell me their story and to be able to kind of, really dig in and learn enough to be able to give good information. We can call 211, but, we get sort of something off the top of their head and may not apply to us. We may have been eligible for something that they didn't even take the time to assess. And so I feel like, we just have a few of these. I think what we're moving towards is the County of LA having one centralized area agency on aging, and that they'll be managing an aging and disability resource connections, which will probably, spike off into different communities to have contact spots. San Francisco has a pretty good handle on this, but they're the city and the county are the same thing. They're the same size and they're much more able to do that. So I think we're learning how do we do it in such a vast county that we have. And but I think we're moving in the right direction right now. I think it's getting better. The thing that concerns me, though, from what you were saying, Wayne, is home care is kind of what I always came up with. If you found that ideal person that filled in the gaps to your day, you could really have a pretty nice life. And I'm just finding it's really expensive. You know, the average cost right now of in-home care is about $32 an hour. You know, if you use an agency, it's like, wow, it's just, I don't know. I'm a little worried about that. So.
Dorsey, did you have a question?
I did. I just wanted to add, people talking about getting somebody to roll the trash out. In Pasadena, there is a free rollout service for seniors. So
Ooh,
know
I didn't
that.
know that.
And
Yeah, I didn't even know about that.
yeah, it's great. You submit your driver's license and they do it like that. Also, yesterday I saw my doctor, Dr. Teresa with Laura Mosqueda, and we went over in detail hospice and what was the other?
The palliative care.
Pardon?
Was it palliative care?
Palliative care or hospice. And those all can be blended together so that you don't, anyway, it was very helpful to me. Adria, I know you know Teresa, and yeah, we worked that all out yesterday. Thanks to Ron taking me and Sue has taken me to the doctor. So I've been a recipient of a lot of help from all of you guys.
I love it. Yay, that's what a village is supposed to be. Yeah. Thank you, Ron, and thank you, Sue. I really appreciate that. And this is really helpful to hear. I've loved hearing your perspective, Dorsey, on a lot of these services, you know, because it's so individual, isn't it? I think we really want to be able to be in control and drive the bus, so to speak.
Does anybody, I would be interested in hearing how somebody has solved a problem that they encountered as far as needing more services. Especially something that doesn't cost.
Well, I understand that the palliative care doesn't cost. So that's why the doctor put me on that. Or we're blending palliative care and hospice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a public service funded by the healthcare system. Most of the healthcare HMOs and so forth will cover palliative care. They kind of wed it with hospice, which is a Medicare benefit.
Yeah.
We're a little bit over time. Are we okay, Wayne? Or I can stay if you guys can stay.
We always have a little leeway unless Katie has scheduled something for 3.
A couple people had to peel off.
Oh, continue the conversation. This is fantastic. Thank you, Adria.
Of course, of course. You know, I think about, I was really interested. I had this caller who was a gentleman. He was working as an engineer, and he kind of found that his mother's memory was starting to fade, and actually that his sister, he thought, was taking care of things, but she wasn't. So he sort of began providing, you know, informal in-home care and had her live with him. And so we talked from time to time, and what he found helpful was having, you know, in-home care providers that could enrich her life, and then he could work and provide for them. But eventually her memory problems were getting more and more intense, and he wasn't able to sleep at night as well because of her memory problems. He used one of the PACE programs and through Ultimed, and so that was a way for her to kind of go for the day, get kind of worn out, because she'd have activities. She'd also have her medical services provided there because she was on Medi-Cal, and so she had to change doctors. But that model, I think, has kind of like the village in my mind. I think there's a lot of hope and potential, you know, if people can manage at home because they use PACE and some of the adult day health care centers to kind of, you know, basically get a lot of their needs met and then go back to their own home environment at the end of the day, and kind of makes things work better. But when you said, you know, something that works, I've seen that work really nicely. At least for a while, and then that person actually went on hospice. But yeah, a lot of trying trying to think of different situations, always unique, but sometimes a family meeting. I remember actually sometimes there'll be a caregiver who's not working out and nobody can get that person out. So sometimes just talking over the concerns and the risks and kind of making sure that everybody gets to communicate. I think just fostering communication is really important when you're making a plan.
The seniors who are most vulnerable to problems are the ones who don't have any immediate support system, who don't have immediate family, or who don't have any close family and are alone and navigating all this by themselves. They're the ones that usually end up being taken advantage of, unfortunately.
Financially. Yeah, I got to study elder mistreatment when I was back in school, and sort of the need to work in concert with attorneys as well as medical professionals. And when Dorsey mentioned Teresa's a real expert in this area too, but just kind of making sure the whole person is there. So let's think of that optimal aging, and there's issues that come up across all those different areas, and financial is certainly one of them.
Okay, well, I think if there are no more questions or comments.
I see Naki's hand has been up, but did you get to say?
Yeah.
It? Hi.
No, I do have a question, and I am multitasking, throwing the ball to my dog while I'm
This is
listening to
fun.
this
I
very
love seeing
good
this guy.
program. But I am a baby boomer, and I'm one of the young old. And I guess I found the presentation very helpful, but it's interesting. I kind of had looked at it from a different perspective, which is planning. If you're in a position now where you're one of the young old and you're doing okay, is planning for these things, starting to think about the options and planning for it. And so you provided a lot of good resources, but how about the other question of how to analyze and plan going forward?
Sure. I think it's so unique, to everybody. So generally when I talk to people on the phone, we begin to look at, where are things that you have concerns about. For example, someone may have a large mortgage on their home and they may say, well, I love living here. It's not going to work once I retire. Or somebody else may own their home outright and say, hey, I worked hard to pay this thing off because I'm never leaving this place, but it's just very unique as you start from, thinking about moving into the future. It's also some people have insurances like long-term care insurance, or they don't. And sometimes it gets a little later in life. It's harder to add that into a supportive resource because it's too costly as we get older. So anyway, kind of looking at those things, it'd be fun to do that with you, probably more on a one-to-one basis. But do you think like maybe a checklist or a booklet or yeah.
I would think that, and there probably are things that programs or questionnaires, I would think it's sort of a kind of planning, but also enhancement of life kind of thing, where you would go through different questions to make you think about planning different aspects, like long-term care, or what your preferences are about remaining in your home, and what the projected expenses are. And there's just a lot of different ingredients.
There really are. Bruce,
Right.
Did you do that? Bruce has his hand up.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I just spent the last, 20 years looking after my parents until they passed away. And so I'm familiar with this stuff, but the scary thing is I have no one in my life who would look after me like I looked after my parents. So the services that you're offering through Verdugo Hills, could it be like a discussion of our individual situations for a little while and just say, okay, here's where my concerns are, and get pointed to the resources? Because I'd be very interested in that.
Sure, that's exactly how it works. so I have even some people volunteer with me, and they'll maybe share a little bit about what they, what's going on, but there's not any issues right now, but they're just wanting to be informed for the future. So we could figure that out. What I love is that I don't have any constraints for the program. It's not a government run thing. So we can make it what we want. And I think Katie and I have, really had this really nice rapport to realize that, hand in hand, I think we can be a support to the village and the village members. When you have questions, feel free anytime to call. And of course we have Senior Care Network too. So they're handy, and you can call them as well. But I have, been tracking, number of people will call me from time to time. And I like what Naki was saying, if we could basically kind of work out some plans. One time, a few years back, the hospital had like an advanced care planning kind of a session. And then they said, we'll keep your advanced directive on file. I'm not sure exactly how that would look, but I would be interested in, sort of having those kinds of discussions. So Bruce, yeah. Oh, you're good. Okay.
Barbara.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Barbara.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Wayne.
this subject has come up in the village about solo aging, and with some consideration of maybe we need to pull together some kind of either educational programs or a series, but I certainly would like to talk to you about maybe having a not necessarily presentation, but a gathering, and where the village can go from there in supporting its members in thinking about solo aging. I mean, a number of members are in that situation, have no family or don't have family that one can rely on.
I have a real passion for that. I did a project with the Alzheimer's Orange County, and they call these people that are living alone, and then they have some cognitive decline. We call them the live-alones. I'm like, when I first started, like, who are the live-alones? You think you kind of know, but I think solo aging or living alone, it takes a village to come wrap around. We can really do probably some ways to help all of us. I'll be probably one of those if I outlive my husband. So I really can, it resonates for me like it does for Bruce, that I did a good job for my parents, and who's going to do that for me? I hope it can be the village, maybe.
Dan, you have your hand up? Oh, you're on mute.
How's that?
Okay.
You hear me?
Good.
I get, yeah.
So the concern I have is this. I, have been pretty careful with my financial life. And if I die, I have a good succession plan. And I don't worry about things that are left undone. My concern is this, based on experience I had with my mother, is what happens if my decision-making capability goes away? If, I get dementia or Alzheimer's or something, I haven't really made any preparations for that event. And I'm healthy and I feel fine, but my mother was healthy and felt fine and then got herself in that situation. So I don't know if it's more of a legal or financial question, or, who I would discuss it with to make sure that I make the right preparations in the event that I lose the ability to make decisions.
I just think that's the crux of where we're at. That is my passion, is, to try to figure that out. There was a colleague of mine from my graduate days that worked with the Consumer Protection Agency, and they created a program online, something like the Planning Ahead Roadmap, I think it's called. And I can get that information to Katie, but it is a kind of an online thing. And the sense I have from it is that we have to name somebody. We have to get somebody sort of in line to speak on our behalf. And it's kind of very similar to like we do for advanced directives, right? Is somebody that kind of can step in. We've made it easy enough for them to access resources and things, but it's not without its challenges, right? Because who's that safe person that won't take advantage of, having that access? So, but yeah, I think you speak for a lot of us, Dan. Yeah, it is a real concern.
Bruce?
Yeah, Dan, I've had those exact same questions. I have one family member who's fairly close to me. She lives 6 hours away and she cares about me, but she's also, because of her religious, political beliefs, kind of very out of step with me. And I've started working on a flow chart. If I became demented, what to do, like saying, okay, keep all the accounts open. You have to pay my long-term care insurance. You have to pay my Medicare supplement. You have to pay my, just keep.
You are a planner. Wow. I love it.
I had to do this for years with my parents, and, just kind of thinking that through, because my niece cares for me, but she's not real financially capable, or she manages or did manage a daycare, and her husband works at a hardware store. I mean, financially not complicated people. And I'm just sitting here going like, okay, if I die, it's real easy. I've got prepaid funeral, everything has beneficiaries, and, it gets settled. But if I become incompetent, that's the scary thing, because you can become incompetent for a very long time. And yeah, so I think I'm going to come and talk to you, Adria. Just kind of
Figure it out. Yeah, let's figure it out together, you guys.
Paula?
I've been exploring the idea of a fiduciary, a person who must keep your best interests at heart. And for a while, I had somebody on my trust, a successor for my trust, but now she's grown, she's older than I am, and it turns out not to be the right choice. So then I talked to a fiduciary. Actually, I went then to have a bank be the handler of all of this, but that was not a very personal thing. And so recently I've been talking to a fiduciary, and I feel very trustful of this person. And I think that might take care of that. It's not somebody that I'd be constantly talking to or paying for, just when the need is greatest to find out, additional information. And then that he would just take over when the time came. If I died, he would know all these things that you're talking about, Bruce, and he would just go down the list and take care of all those things. And he would be paid then from the money that I had left over when I passed away. Yeah. So I wouldn't be paying for all of that up front.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm in that position with one of my friends. She's a friend from work, and she just turned 76. So she's a little over 10 years older than I am. And, we're very good friends. And so I'm taking her to look at assisted livings and stuff like that, just so that she can make an informed decision if she needs that. And I'm making the decision for her. And I did that with my parents. But yeah, and it's like, even with my doctors, I'm switching doctors to get ones that are quite a bit younger than me, because a doctor my age is not a good choice.
Good planning. I love it.
Okay, anything else? Well, it's given me some ideas for future educational presentations. I mean, we've had financial and legal presentations in the past, but these are the kind of things that have to be done on a regular basis, right, Barbara?
Yes. Like the fiduciary. By the way, that presentation, which happened a couple of months ago, was recorded and is available on our website. I think. Am I correct?
It is available.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's from one of our board members. Who's a fiduciary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I guess we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
So thank you very much, Adria.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, Adria.
Thanks, everybody, for great questions. And yeah.
Thank you.
All right. See you soon.
We'll see you guys later.
Hey, thanks.
Bye.
Well, bye, Dorsey.
Bye, Adrian.
Take care.